Santa Claus is apparently watching over me. It's kind of a gift that it worked out perfectly to watch the movie starring the guy that is essentially Jack Frost, just in time for the holiday season. And yes, grab your popcorn and candy because we're going back to the movies with the second Bleach film, DiamondDust Rebellion. DiamondDust Rebellion follows up the fantastic Memories of Nobody, which I also watched and talked about recently, and while it may not have reached the heights of the first movie, I do think that the second film still had plenty of interesting things in it. So let's get into it. The movie is essentially a mystery centered around Captain Hitsugaya, where after an ancient artifact from Soul Society called the Oin is stolen, he seems to be the prime suspect, only for us to learn that someone from his past somehow has an identical Zanpakuto and is the real culprit. So we spend the movie with Hitsugaya as a fugitive as we try to unravel what exactly is going on and clear his name, all while he tries to get closure on a tragedy from long ago. Okay, so with two Hyuranmarus, this movie should be twice as cool, right? Is it? It's pretty chill, I guess. Captain Hitsugaya is one of my favorite characters so far in the manga, but he hasn't exactly been the center of attention where I'm at. He had a few chapters of focus during the Aizen Momo investigation stuff in the Soul Society arc, and has been kind of the field leader so far in the Arrancar arc, but he's mostly been presented as kind of a chill, aloof kind of character that holds himself in a very professional manner most times. He's someone that demands a lot of respect, since at first glance he might not be given the respect that he's actually earned. So it was really interesting to see him in the limelight and take center stage. And make no mistake, this is absolutely a Toshiro Hitsugaya movie. Yes, Ichigo is in it, but this is all about our resident Elsa and his past. And even if it isn't canon, what a disturbing past it was. Yes, there was a whole lot of Captain Hitsugaya in this, which was great, and it's a great idea to have him kind of lead a movie. But I did kind of find myself disappointed that it really relied on that kind of plot device where he's constantly withholding information from everyone, just making himself seem more guilty of a crime that he didn't commit. Yes, they eventually give a reason, but it just felt a little forced for the sake of drama when it came down to it. Could he have just had a conversation with his head captain about what's going on? Maybe. But then again, if we place this movie shortly after Aizen's betrayal, it's understandable why everyone could be a little bit on edge when it comes to treason and loyalty, but it just felt a little weird to me that someone as thoughtful and reasonable as Hitsugaya, takes the kind of route that seems like it's going to cause even more of a problem. The reasons he gives later are understandable, like trying to protect people and not burden anyone and deal with his own past on his own, but it just felt a little off to me. I don't know, I didn't really fully buy it. Maybe the movie could have given me a bit more reason to believe that he would be acting that way. And yes, Ichigo definitely took a back seat in this, which is fine, I guess, but it really felt like the movie didn't actually need him in the end. They kind of tried to tie him into the themes of the film a little with how he dealt with his own past compared to how Hitsugaya is handling his, which I appreciated, but he's mostly just along for the ride. On the one hand, it's kind of nice to give another character the main protagonist role, but on the other hand, it just felt strange to have Ichigo being kind of dragged along by the plot. Not to compare this movie too much to its predecessor, but Memories of Nobody did a much better job balancing this aspect, because while that movie was in many ways about Senna, Ichigo still had his own journey, and its story gave us a chance to really understand different aspects of him and who he was through his relationship with her. By the end of that movie, Ichigo had his own beautiful arc, but I didn't feel anything powerful like that for him in this. So either give him a more essential part of this plot, or just don't include him, which would absolutely be weird for a Bleach project, but it might have honestly worked better if he wasn't here. I don't know, maybe I'm just crazy, but it felt like he wasn't really necessary for this story, and he honestly was a little distracting from what was actually going on. And DiamondDust Rebellion was honestly lacking some of the emotional payoffs for me in comparison to the first film in general. But I'm not trying to say that the first movie did everything better than this one, because it didn't. One of my only real criticisms with Memories of Nobody was the pretty shallow villains, which is something that this movie definitely improved upon in some respects. While we still have expendable movie fodder baddies with Yin and Yang, who are just these random Arrancar girls, I guess, the main villain, Sojiro Kusaka, was definitely much more developed and much more interesting than the man whose name I have forgotten and knew that I would forget. We'll just call him the nobody that I have no memory of. Yes, Kusaka was much better than him as an antagonist. He had a much more personal connection with the main character of the movie, had real understandable motivations, and thanks to having the exact same Zanpakuto as Captain Hitsugaya, he had a very cool power set to make use of visually. Kusaka's backstory also brought probably the most interesting things about the movie, for better or worse, so let's start with the thing I really liked about it. Kusaka's past reinforced the idea of just how terrible the Soul Society can be. We've seen their shadiness, their corruption, and terrible methods a few times in the actual series, but this movie may have shown them at their worst that I've seen so far. After Hitsugaya and Kusaka manifest identical Zanpakutos, more on that in a couple minutes, the Soul Society forces them to fight to the death because only one of them is allowed to wield Hyoranmaru. Let's just think about how utterly disturbing that whole idea is. So because these two children's spiritual energies manifested in the same way, one has to murder the other. The Soul Society forces these kids to fight to the death. It's incredibly messed up and disturbing, and I was very I don't even have the words. It was ugh. We've seen that the Soul Society can turn on their own Soul Reapers, and this movie just highlights that even more. Between what they forced Hitsugaya into back then, and how quick they were to distrust him and make him an enemy in the present, the movie did a great job of reminding viewers that the Soul Society is far from some benevolent and reasonable organization at times. And I know this movie isn't canon, so can't really be taken into account when it comes to motivations in the manga. But man, Captain Hitsugaya should really be on Aizen's side after this stuff. Like, if this backstory was true in the manga, he should have been dancing with joy when he found the Central 46 massacred. The Soul Society put Hitsugaya into such an unfair and horrible position back in the day that he should have been so glad when all those psychos were slaughtered. Thankfully, none of this really happened, so I don't need to think too deeply about it and how it affected him in the long haul, but it was an interesting piece of history that shined some light on the dark underbelly of Soul Society and what they are capable of. Now, as for the part of Hitsugaya and Kusaka's backstory that didn't really work for me, I don't know if twin Zanpakutos ever becomes a thing in the manga, but the whole concept of it is really weird to me. It's something that we've never even seen, and as far as I can remember was never hinted at in the manga, but it just didn't sit right with me as I was watching the movie. Conceptually, it could be an interesting idea, but it just kind of felt out of line with everything we know about this world. And while that's kind of addressed, considering how the Soul Society handled it, so maybe this happens and we just never hear about it because the other wielder is killed as a child, the whole premise just didn't work for me. From what's been established in the story and in this universe so far, Zanpakuto is an incredibly personal thing. The power and in some ways identity manifested in physical form, reflecting the inner qualities of the one that wields it. The idea that two people can have identical swords, which apparently have identical spirits, just feels like it goes against the beauty of that lore a little bit. As cool as it is to see two ice dragons throw down, it was something that I wasn't a fan of and seemed to go against the main series in a much more distracting way. Again, I know this movie isn't canon, so it doesn't really matter, but it did keep taking me out of the film when I'd think about it too much. So, yeah, I don't know if that's a thing going forward at all with any part of the manga, and if it is, I hope they explain it in a way that seems more natural, because this felt kind of out of the blue and weird. And it could have been cool, but it wasn't. I don't know. I didn't really like it. I kind of would have preferred if maybe it was like a similar Zanpakuto, but wasn't the exact same thing. I don't know. The whole thing was a little weird. Which is kind of a problem with another aspect of the movie, which I'm about to get into, is a lot of it kind of doesn't get a good, clear explanation. Or at least not a satisfying one. Like the Oin was a weird plot device. First off, it's this artifact that can alter time and space and all of that, so it's super powerful, and also apparently saved Kusaka's life after he was executed as a kid, but it's super vague. And I'm not really sure how that happened. They don't really elaborate on what it means that this Oin saved him, especially since he didn't have the Oin at the time, I don't know. But whatever, I guess. It's not canon. Like, the Owing's purpose was really just to give us something to try to recover and be worried about, but all of that was just it was kind of messy. I don't know, it was kind of messy. Anyway, the movie looked nice. It had solid animation and was pretty to watch throughout. I loved the kind of colder atmosphere of the whole thing, which is not only fitting for the characters at the heart of the story, but also appropriate for this time of year especially. But as nice as a lot of it looked, none of the action or fight scenes really stood out much to me as being overly impressive. It was all just kind of by the numbers. Not bad, but just nothing that really blew me away this time. Well, besides my hollow-loving self getting to see a massive army of my babies, and then my boy Kenpachi charging an enormous ice dragon. But those are just selfish pleasures for me, and don't really make up for some of the other action in the movie. When it comes down to it, DiamondDust Rebellion wasn't bad, but it wasn't really special either. I was entertained enough for the most part, and I enjoyed Captain Hitsugaya getting more of a spotlight. It had some interesting things about it, along with some frustrating things, but I don't think it'll stand out to me down the road that much. The thing I'll probably remember most is just how disturbing Hitsugaya and Kusako's backstory was. But besides that, I feel like a lot of this is things that I'm gonna kind of forget about pretty quickly, honestly. It was a serviceable movie that kept me entertained for 90 minutes, but didn't really leave that much of an impression on an emotional level. Like, it didn't hit me in even close to as big of a way as Memories of Nobody did, which... that's the thing. The thing is, I've seen what a Bleach movie is really capable of, and DiamondDust Rebellion didn't quite manage to hit those high notes. It wasn't great, but for a mostly harmless, non-canon Bleach movie, it was pretty cool. I just want to take a moment and wish all of you a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. I'm honestly so grateful for the support and the sense of community that you all have given me this year. Like, these past few months since I've been uploading again, it's just been incredible, and that's really all on you guys. It's really a great gift, and I'm so thankful to be experiencing Bleach the way I am and sharing it with other people that the story means so much to. So thank you all so much, and I hope you have a cozy and safe holiday. Merry Christmas.